Have you ever looked at a world map and wondered how so many countries got their modern borders? It wasn't always like this. For centuries, vast empires ruled by European powers stretched across the globe. But in the 20th century, a powerful wave of change swept through Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, leading to one of the most dramatic transformations in human history: the rise of global independence movements. Today, we're diving deep into this incredible story of freedom, struggle, and the birth of the world we live in. Let's rewind to the early 20th century. Powerful European nations like Great Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal controlled huge territories. They extracted resources, imposed their own laws, and often suppressed local cultures. But beneath the surface of colonial rule, the seeds of resistance were being sown. People in these colonized lands dreamed of self-determination, the right to govern themselves and shape their own destiny. Then came World War II, a conflict that shook the world to its core. While the war was a story of immense tragedy, it also became a major turning point for colonial empires. European powers, even the victors like Britain and France, were exhausted. Their economies were shattered, their armies were depleted, and their prestige was damaged. They had fought a war in the name of freedom and democracy, yet they were denying those very same principles to millions of people in their colonies. This hypocrisy was not lost on the colonized populations. For people living under colonial rule, the post-war era felt like a window of opportunity. They saw the weakness of their colonizers and realized the time to act was now. The war had also exposed many colonial subjects to new ideas. Soldiers from Africa and Asia fought alongside Europeans and saw that their colonizers were not invincible gods, but ordinary men. They returned home with a new sense of confidence and a burning desire for freedom. This growing desire for independence needed a voice, and it found one in a generation of powerful and charismatic nationalist leaders. These weren't just politicians. They were symbols of hope and resistance. In India, there was Mahatma Gandhi, whose philosophy of nonviolent civil disobedience, or satyagraha, inspired millions to peaceably defy British rule. His methods, like the famous Salt March, were brilliantly simple yet incredibly powerful, showing the world that resistance didn't have to be violent to be effective. In West Africa, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana became a leading voice for Pan-Africanism, arguing that the freedom of Ghana was meaningless unless it was linked to the total liberation of the African continent. His passionate speeches and organizing skills helped make Ghana the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence from a European power in 19, lighting a fire that would spread across Africa. In Southeast Asia, Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam led a decades-long first against the French and later against the Americans. He was a master tactician and a symbol of unwavering resistance for his people. And in South Africa, Nelson Mandela's long fight against the brutal system of apartheid would eventually make him a global icon of freedom and reconciliation. These leaders, and many others like them, were able to unite diverse groups of people under a single banner: the fight for national independence. They gave a face and a voice to the aspirations of millions. However, the path to freedom was not the same for everyone. The journey to independence took many different forms. Some peaceful, others tragically violent. Some countries managed to negotiate their freedom. Ghana's independence, for example, was achieved through political organization, strikes, and boycotts, with relatively little bloodshed. The British, weakened and facing international pressure, eventually agreed to a handover of power. India's path, while rooted in nonviolence, was also complex and ultimately resulted in the painful partition of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan, which led to widespread violence and displacement. But for many others, independence could only be won on the battlefield. The Algerian War for Independence from France, which lasted from 1954 to 1962, was one of the most brutal colonial conflicts. It was a vicious war characterized by guerrilla tactics, terrorism, and brutal counterinsurgency operations, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths. Similarly, countries like Vietnam, Angola, and Mozambique had to endure long and devastating wars to finally break free from their colonial rulers. These struggles showed that colonial powers were often unwilling to give up their prized possessions without a bloody fight, leaving deep scars that would last for generations. Despite the challenges, the tide of history was unstoppable. Between the late 1940s and the 1970s, an astonishing number of new nations emerged on the world stage. More than 80 countries in Asia and Africa gained their independence during this period. This wind of change, as British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan called it, completely redrew the political map of the world. The age of vast, globe-spanning empires was officially over, replaced by a new world order of sovereign nation-states. The birth of these new nations coincided with the rise of a new global institution, the United Nations, founded in 1945 with the goal of preventing future wars. The UN's charter enshrined the principle of This gave independence movements a powerful platform and moral legitimacy on the world stage. As more and more newly independent countries joined the UN, they formed a significant voting bloc in the General Assembly, known as the Non-Aligned Movement. They used their collective voice to champion decolonization, oppose Cold War politics, and advocate for the rights of developing nations. The UN became a crucial forum where young countries could assert their sovereignty and engage with the global community on their own terms. But winning independence was just the first step. The dawn of freedom was not the end of the struggle. In many ways, it was just the beginning of a new, even more complex one. New nations faced a mountain of challenges. For starters, they had to build stable governments and political institutions from scratch, often with little experience in colonialism had rarely prepared local populations for leadership. Economically, these new countries were often in a dire state. Their economies had been designed to serve the needs of the mother country, focusing on exporting raw materials rather than developing local industries. They were left with underdeveloped infrastructure and a workforce trained for colonial jobs, not for building a modern economy. Perhaps one of the most damaging legacies of colonialism was the creation of arbitrary borders. European powers had drawn lines on a map with little regard for the ethnic, linguistic, and religious realities on the ground. They lumped together rival groups and split cohesive communities across different territories. After independence, these artificial borders became a source of constant conflict, leading to civil wars, ethnic strife, and separatist movements that continue to destabilize many regions. To this day, the tragic Rwandan genocide, the Nigerian Civil War, and countless other conflicts have their roots in these colonial-era decisions. So, what is the legacy of these independence movements today? It's everywhere. The world we live in, its political alliances, its economic disparities, its conflicts, and its cultural exchanges. A direct product of this era of decolonization, many of the world's current borders are a direct result of these movements. Global politics is no longer a game played only by a handful of European powers. It's a complex arena with nearly 200 sovereign nations, each with its own interests and voice. The struggles of decolonization also continue to shape international relations. Post-colonial theory helps us understand the lingering economic and cultural effects of empire. Debates over returning stolen artifacts, providing development aid, and addressing historical injustices are all part of this ongoing conversation. And every year, nations across the globe celebrate their Independence Day with parades, fireworks, and patriotic songs. Powerful reminder of their journey to freedom and the sacrifices that were made to achieve it. The rise of global independence movements is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable human desire for dignity and self. It's a complex and often messy story, filled with both triumphs and tragedies. But it's a story that fundamentally reshaped our planet and continues to influence our lives in countless ways. Understanding this history is key to understanding the world today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey through history interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. Let us know in the comments which independence movement you find most fascinating. See you in the next video.